Works now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, now we can see a little bit. Well, my presentation is about this idea of a common pool of value and resources. And I like to believe that this will be the beginning of new era, the dawn of a new economic paradigm. This is my name, as mentioned earlier. I'm teaching, and also I'm involved in all kinds of other projects with my company. And the interesting part of these projects that deals with alternative currencies, sustainable lifestyles, new economic paradigms, is that working on them, I figured it out that most of the projects deal with reciprocity and transactions. Because this is the economic paradigm we're living in. I give you this, you give me that. But life doesn't really function like this, and I believe that there is a lot of value that is generated in the interaction between people, among people, that is gone. And I'm talking about the good intentions. For instance, one of the projects is with alternative currencies in small Italian communities that try to integrate the immigrants. And more important than the currency and the inclusion is the good intention of giving those people a chance actually to be integrated into society. Also, I'll discuss later about other types of values that are generated in daily interactions and, for instance, the motivation and intrinsic motivations that we have, the passion we put in whatever we do, that are gone, are taken for granted, and they are gone, they are disappearing. And in fact, they are not disappearing. Because of these reasons, I thought, like, how can we capture them? Because actually they are captured. And they are captured and basically by the current economic system, commodified and sold back. I got this quote from Bovenis Niaros, who are part of P2P Foundation. And they noticed that a lot of value that is created on internet, for instance, is captured by the companies and then sold back. And we are talking not only about value that is created by the common effort, but also the value that is created by us using the internet is data that is literally milked out from us and then used for corporate reasons. And I will give you some examples. One of these examples is the famous Google 20% scheme. 50% of the products of Google are generated by 20% scheme, meaning that Google, for about 10 years, allowed their employees to have 20% of their paid time to develop their own projects. And they came up with some interesting stuff, like Google Maps, like Gmail, like Google Talks, and Google AdSense that basically generate about 30% of Google incomes. What happened with this value that is created by the employees of Google when they leave Google? It's kept on Google. So Google takes the value that is created there, employees leave, and they basically leave empty-handed. Another thing that I had in mind is all this content that is created on internet and facilitates our life that is not paid. People are doing simply because they like what they are doing. I'm talking about, yeah, it's in Spanish, but I can point out everything like, you know, being able to download movies, literature, music out from internet, programs, software, freely accessible. It's freely accessible there, but however, the value that is generated by those people is again captured by the interface providers. Talking about feminist economies, and they talk about the value that is generated within the child rearing, the domestic care work, the social cooperation, the ethical norms, the education and natural systems. Again, there are values that are generated in the interaction of every day among people, and they are capitalized by the market economy as labor. The market economy won't be able to function without this value that is generated within the domestic economy. I had another experience in the sense of shared values and resources, and this happened in Auroville in India. I lived there for about 6 months, and Auroville is a very interesting concept. Basically, everything is pulled together. Resources, innovation, knowledge, and so on and so forth. The problem is that whatever is developed there, and one of the things developed there is the USB connection, for instance, stays there. So it's a little bit like Google. You can develop whatever you have in your mind, you can foster your passions, but in the moment when you want to leave the community, in the moment when you want to do something that is not necessarily in line with the vision of the community, you are again empty-handed. Something that is somehow in between is Sensorica. It's a company now that was created in 2012 in Canada, and they came up with this network resource planning and value accounting. They play very much on economy of scope, meaning that they gather together developers who are interested to develop the same project, they put resources together, and then they have this very minutious and complex system to account for the value that is generated there, and then paid back. One of the very interesting aspects of Sensorica is that even projects that don't make it to the market, and most of the time would be discarded, can be reintegrated by the members of Sensorica and worked out. And in case they have a market success, the value created through the market success is redistributed to those who actually help to have the project to be generated. I've seen all this, and I find that in most of the cases, the problem is the transactional nature. I give you this, you give me that. And the fact that we are using metrics to figure it out, the value. And I believe that value, the intrinsic values, are not to be measured. You can't measure life. You can't measure love. You can't measure care. These kind of values are too important to be measured. And for this reason, I came up with a pool of value and resources for non-monetary, non-reciprocal value transfer that can function as a clearinghouse. The whole idea is how you can pay your bills when you are living in this kind of utopian world where you do whatever you like and you follow your motivations, but still you have to pay your rent and all the other bills. Talking about value, most of the time value is associated with money, right? If something doesn't have a price, it doesn't have value. But we have our own values, our ethics, our beliefs. And these, again, are priceless. You can't quantify them. And then keep on working on all kinds of projects. I figured it out that we put a lot of efforts and resources in actually having a good life. Socrates actually talks about value as being good life. And this is my point. Whatever we do to have our life better, to have a good life. As definition of resources other than assets, I like the origin of the term resource, which is the French résoudre, meaning to rise again, to recover. A resource should not be finite, should be renewable. And creativity, innovation is renewable. Actually help us to find new resources when those we have are depleted or they are not good anymore. I put these two causes that I really like and change completely my perspective about money, to be honest. One of them is Warren Buffett, who says, price is what you pay, value is what you get. Value and price are not related to each other. And the second one is Joe Fresco, who has this talk about his project about resource-based economy. And he says that to better understand the resource-based economy, consider this. If all the money in the world suddenly disappeared, but topsoil, factories, and other resources were left intact, we could build anything we choose to build and fulfill any human need. It is not money that people need, but access to necessities of life without having to appeal to a government, bureaucracy, or any other agency. In a resource-based economy, money is irrelevant. What's required are the resources and manufacturing and distribution of the products. He came up with this idea experiencing the big crisis in the United States, and his concern was like, how is it possible? People have the needs. We have the capacity to fulfill their needs. We have the production means. And still, people are sleeping on the streets and are starving simply because they don't have money. This is a nonsense. And I do believe that money is not necessary. We can live without them. And actually, we can live better without them if we manage to find a connection among each other. But we don't. the last 30 years are experiencing what is called financialization of everyday life, or every person is supposed to be the CEO of his own company. We are supposed to fend for ourselves in order to thrive in this world, and it's the survival of the fittest. We have to push the other in order to fulfill our needs. And I do believe that this is not the life, at least I want to live. I want to live a life that is fulfilled, and I enjoy it. And for this reason, I came with this construct that is a bit difficult to read, but actually, the sun is not with me, but I'll just briefly...
Yeah. Maybe we can put down, because it's impossible to read.
Okay. Yeah, at least it's sunny here. In Netherlands, it's not that sunny. So I'm lucky, in a sense. The central idea of this pool of resources and value is that it's supposed to play as an interface, as an exchange house between the internal actors and the external actors. Internal actors are those who want to be part of this system, those who want to work and cooperate with each other simply because they like each other, they like their values, they like their lifestyles, and they find something that connects them. Their cooperation is not supposed to be reciprocal. You do something that you like simply because you like it. And even though this might sound completely idealistic and utopic, I would beg the difference. And the difference is that we not only do things that we like for free, often we pay for them. Only that we call them hobbies. How about our hobbies become our lifestyle? How about if we are doing what we like to do simply because we like to do it and we find like-minded people? And in this case, we create some sort of synergies that manage somehow to cover our basic needs. If we manage to find this system and we pool resources together, and the value generated by the use of these resources and cooperation is capitalized, is accumulated in a conceptual pool of value and resources, this could function as a brand. This could function as an interface. And the external actors, who can be individuals, markets, the state and civil society, have a way to translate this kind of utopian world into their world. It's not completely utopian, because in my vision, using the blockchain technology, that is a very accurate system to figure it out, the interaction between the members of a community helps to track down each contribution. And the reason for this is that in case someone wants to leave the system, doesn't leave it empty-handed. However, those people who are the internal actors, who are exchanging their resources and knowledge, they will use what I call emotional currencies. They just like each other, they just feel inspired by each other, and they cooperate with each other in this sense. The interface, the pool of value of resources, is supposed to translate these emotional currencies in transactional currencies, into money. Because, once again, we have to pay our bills. Now, why would you do this? First of all, because this encourages cooperation instead of competition. If we use metrics, this leads inevitably to competition. We want to be better, we want to get more money, we want to get more credits, right? It's the way the system works. We want to accumulate more in order to see what is the value of what we do. If we don't use metrics anymore, if we are just doing what we like to do without counting for it, this encourages cooperation. I would rather cooperate with someone if I don't have to figure it out how money I have to put out of my pocket and how money gets into my pocket. I do it only because I like it. Another reason to use this one is that forces the intrinsic needs and motivations. The common narrative is telling us what our needs and motivations. It proved to be wrong. I'm from the generation who believed that success means to have this kind of suburban American dream, having a house, a car, wife, dogs, and what is called a white picket fence. I learned that I was wrong. This doesn't necessarily bring happiness. This doesn't necessarily bring a happy life. It's a beautiful picture for a movie. And it took me about 30 years to figure it out, and I hope that using the system, people will run a bit faster to the understanding of what are their intrinsic needs and motivations. And Another reason is that this fosters common value creation and ownership. Again, pooling everything under the umbrella of a pool of value resources creates this kind of mass of assets, and it's tangible and intangible assets. I'm pulling together what I have as equipment, as a car, a computer, servers, and so on and so forth, but also whatever I'm creating in terms of copyright is part of a common, and everyone can use it. So in this sense, if I want to use a software that is created by one member of my system, I don't have to pay money for it. I just give a call and ask, how can I use it better? And the developer most likely will be excited to tell me how to do this, because if you like what you do, you want to share it with others. You don't want to keep it under your blanket and, you know, maybe make some money out of it. And another reason for using this system is easiness in joining and leaving. Because the idea of the system is not really like a sect, and I'm saying this because when I live in Oroville, often Oroville was seen as a sect, you know, like a religious, spiritual gathering. Again, you go there, you put all your assets together. In the moment when you leave empty-handed. In this case, the blockchain technology allows people to figure it out, hey, this is the contribution I have in the system, and in case I want to leave the system, I can take something with me and see how it goes further on. Again, it sounds very utopian and very vague, and I have to admit this, because I'm just at the beginning of this project, so I don't really know exactly the governance rules that are supposed to be implemented. What I know about the governance rules is that they have to be very flexible. They have to go organically. In case you come up with a set of rules like the laws in the common system, people will tend to bend the corners and to figure it out loopholes. In case the rules, the governance is organically created on basis of trust and mutual like, it's easier to come up with a governance that allows people to come in and to come out. Again, it's a formal and informal structure. So each one has the choice of choosing how strongly connected with this pool of value resources wants to be. We have also the external actors and why they would use or interact with this pool of value resources. For the markets, for instance, you know, having a brand, in this case is the pool of value resources, having an umbrella, it's easier to translate it into the market terms. If I'm an entrepreneur and I come up with a project for banks, they will tell me most likely, sorry, no. But if I leverage on the power of numbers and I show that, hey, you know, I'm a project out of a sea of projects. This is the amount of assets we have together. And these assets are tangible and intangible. And I would like this money for financing. Can you come with an appraisal? I have to tell you that 70% of worldwide assets are intangible. Patents, goodwill, brands. So for the markets, and I'm a former financial person, it's easier to quantify and to translate this into money. So it's easier to understand what's going on there. Also, leveraging on power of numbers allows people joining the system to ask for preferential terms and conditions. Sensorica already does this. It's more difficult to ask for a discount if I want to buy 10 servers and I'm just one entrepreneur. It's easier to ask for a discount if I want to buy 100 servers, because other people within my network would like to buy the same thing. Again, it's not about economies of scale, it's about economies of scope. And the scope of people who wants to do the same thing is accumulated in this pool of value and resources. For the state, it's easier to come up with impact studies of the value created within this system. One of projects I find very interesting and I was involved is about creating something similar for digital social innovation. Digital social innovation will be everything from Wikipedia to BlaBlaCar to blockchain system to monitor the expenditure of a government and so on and so forth. if I'm the government, I can figure it out the impact of one project, but also I can figure it out the impact of this pool of value, pool of projects. And for me, it will be easier to figure it out if I want to finance or not a project that is part of this pool. Also for the states, it's important to figure it out the spillover effect, what I call the good life. Is this system improving the quality of life of people who are participating into it? Is this system improving the quality of life of people who are related to it? And for the civil society is what I call acknowledgement, recognition, and endorsements. It's giving them a space where actually you can say, hey, I'm really happy what I've been experiencing in relation to projects or development that have been done on this pool of value and resources, and I write it down there. We all use this when we are looking for hotels ratings, for advice on blogs, for software. This will be actually in place where it's easier to see all this endorsement, acknowledgement, and recognition. And as I told you, this will create easier funding selection criteria, and also, what I find interesting, could be seen as a, what I call a saving boat. In case our market economy falters again or collapses, we have a saving boat. We have an alternative that we can use and maybe we can replicate. So, to conclude, a pool of value resources for non-monetary, non-reciprocal value transfer leverages the visibility and power of its member, could function as a clearinghouse and exchange system, and could create a sound government that leads to a good life. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. It's time for questions. We have just, okay.
Very interesting, thank you very much. In what way is what you're doing there not just designing a better monetary system? I mean, when you say it's non-monetary, I look at that and go, well, isn't that just a much better monetary system that you're building? Rather than it being not, to call it non-monetary, it looks like it's got a diversity of money that is more powerful than the money we have at the moment. I look at it and go, that's just a much better system, because you're reinventing lots of aspects of it. And to what extent have you got any of this working at the moment?
To which extent?
How much of this is just an idea? Are you getting any of this working, or?
Part of it, well, to answer your first question, yeah, is an alternative. And the non-monetary part is what I call the emotional currencies. The fact that basically among internal actors, there are not supposed to be monetary transfers. We just play on our synergies, we just play on our motivation, we play on our excitement. However, the monetary value, the metrics of this value that is created within the internal actors is accumulated here. And then is could be translated actually in transactional currencies into money. There are already some initiatives in this respect. There are some, especially software developers who are working in this system, but they are working as a hobby. They are just taking some of their free time, their knowledge, and they are working on projects that they like to do. Out of these hobbies, one of them, for instance, is ad blocker that I use extensively because I'm really annoyed to have advertising on YouTube. Someone developed this one, actually 3 people. I downloaded it. I can watch YouTube without advertising. When I'm going to Safari and I have the advertising all the time, I'm getting really annoyed. Yeah. So there are already initiatives like this. The whole point is to leverage them and actually to achieve a critical mass.
Okay.
So when you say emotional currencies, are you talking about something that is, I have a couple questions. Are you talking about something that is quantifiable? Or if it's not quantifiable, then how would you get people to communicate some rough idea of quantity between, you know, like, I did this for this amount.
I know what I'm talking about, and this, yeah, I know that I throw a lot of ideas and I don't really develop them in 20 minutes. But for instance, one of the things I noticed in Oroville is that basically you put all your resources and your capacities together. However, you have a safety net, meaning that you have free lodgement, free food, social services, and also get some pocket money, right? Assuming that you want to be part of the system and to have a formal involvement, your contribution can be monitored here. So in case you need some money or you are part of the system, this could work as a corporation, as a company that has the leverage negotiation power of numbers. If I want to have an insurance, for instance, if I go myself to the insurance company, I can't negotiate it. Or if I do, I have very little negotiation power. If I'm going as a broader, bigger organization, I have a bigger leveraging power. And this is the reason why I'm saying you can get preferential terms and conditions. However, the interaction among these people, the internal actors, again, should not be monitored. Yeah? I'm doing it because I like it. However, I have to find a way to get some money out of it, and this is the blockchain technology who's supposed to help me to figure it out, the value that is created. Again, I totally see your question because at this moment I don't really have a clear idea of the governance rules. How much money goes to whom and how. This is something that I intend to develop further on.
And then my other question was just, have you heard of or read into Eleanor Ostrom and her
yeah, the 10
tools?
rules of common governance. Yeah, exactly. That will be one of the first things to consider in the moment when you are doing the governance framework for this system. Yeah. And I have to be, it's interesting that you mentioned this one because I discussed recently with someone who visited one of the communities Eleanor Ostrom visited like 30 years ago in Turkey, and it was a fisherman community on the Aegean Sea. And today none of those fishermen is fishing anymore because there's no fish anymore. But because they had very strong governance rules, they are doing better because they figured out how to use the assets together such a way that the fishing boats became now tourist boats. So they replaced their function from fishermen in tourist guide. And the reason why they managed to do this, and it was not a corporation who was capitalizing on this, is because they have very strong and very sane governance rules within themselves. I can hear you.
Okay. My question is, since I'm working also for years already with people and communities on the basis of no monetary exchange, just like you said for spiritual goals. As I look at your suggestions, is it true that I can consider it as a devaluation of money and the monetary interest in a way of also presenting the whole structure, like working together in a schedule or in an organizational flip chart that everyone is able, like I was talking in the last lesson about new values, now consideration, how to live, why to live, and so on, so that we get like educators or those who help people to understand new society looks like, that we have a structure showing the interaction of everything.
Yeah, actually, yeah. One of the ways I come up to this one is that I have to write a chapter about finance in a book, and you know everyone expected to talk about the crisis, and I was like, I don't like the crisis, and I'm fed up to read about it, so I want to do something else. And then I tried to track down the development of finance in the last 6,000 years. And in my perspective, you know, there was a moment when the value related to finance was trust. People really valued this, and the relationship were mainly based on trust. Somewhere in the Middle Ages, you have the accumulation. And what I see now more and more is that the value that is related to finance is connectivity. People want to step out of the CEO, the bubble, and want to relate to each other. There is a lot of criticism of using this kind of social networks. But the social networks have also their good side. And the good side is that allows people who are remotely to connect to each other and leverage on their interests. And I strongly believe in this in the sense that we are going to an era where we'll be more interested of fostering ourselves rather than accumulating material values. I really like this Charles Eisenstein. He was talking about the childhood age of humanity, when we use the planet as we use a mother, and then we have the teenager age of humanity when we abuse a little bit the parents, the mother, and his perspective is like now we are going toward adulthood, when we have to live with the mother, with the parents in symbiosis. And I do believe that this is not only a beautiful concept, it's a trend actually that I see more and more often. Yeah.
I should stop questions because we are a bit in late and there are other authors. So thank you, then Diojdescu. Maybe at the end of the session there will be more time to further questions.
I'm still around for the next 3 days. And
Okay.
please, if you have any questions, use my Yahoo because it's the one that I use the most. And I'm really happy to get any feedback or input because it helps me very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the second